Hey, everybody, welcome to another episode of the Business Barbershop Podcast. I am Chris.
I'm Keane.
Today, we have probably a shorter episode. We're going to talk a little bit about sales, and then we're just going to see where everything else goes. But it is October 22, 2024. Hopefully, you have got your Halloween costume picked out, and you're starting your Christmas shopping because it's time. But I digress. Today, we're going to talk about sales.
Yep.
I kind of brought the topic up. One of the things that we were talking about was, sales is obviously just a part of our firm dynamic. Potential clients call us. We have to sign them up, and for that reason, I've kind of gotten into sales a little bit. I do a lot of training, sales training for my team, and stuff like that, and sometimes there are different things that people have a hard time getting over the hump on, and thought we'd just talk about that. So, Keane,
Yeah.
thoughts? Where would you like to go with this?
Yeah. I mean, it's funny that we're talking about marketing and sales because I do want to say what I'm going to do is I'm going to spend more time talking about a sales process that for me has been the most successful. It's a blended tactic between two different people that I've seen as coaches at the core, which I'm a student in. Both of
Yep.
them are no longer core coaches anymore, coincidentally. But I learned a lot from both of them. I will say though that I am, for the first time, dabbling with the space of that side of marketing that really focuses a lot about exclusivity and limited availability. As a consumer, I've experienced this. I mean, I'm wearing
Mhm.
a Tiffany signed Patek Philippe watch that you know you have to beg them to spend 40 grand to buy something from them. It's like stupid, right?
Yep.
I say it's
Yep.
stupid, but I'm one of them, right? Please, can I buy this timepiece that
Right.
I could tell the time better on my phone, and this watch could pay for every iPhone upgrade I will need for the rest of my life, right?
Yes.
Um,
Yep.
but yet, it's a world that a lot of wealthy people uh, gravitate towards. And so, I just to say, like, as I go through the sales process that I'm going to talk about, it is not for that kind of business. And so I'm for the first time entering a world of building a business with that kind of marketing tactic, literally saying no to clients and turning away clients more and telling clients up front that this is part of the process and that they have to be, that we work together, they could be in that circle and building up a reputation for it that way. Um, and so it's my first time doing it that way. So this process isn't necessarily for that, for that type of business. But in all fairness, to have that kind of a business, you have to have something that the market recognizes as such a high value that many of the elite that have the money, in our case, also credit, assets, net worth, to work with me, are saying, I have all these options technically, but I feel like you're my only option. And when I find out that I need you more than you need me, and the circle is small, then I'm begging to stay in the circle.
Right. There's
To the
some
extent I've,
scarcity there.
for sure. And my new business model, is not the exclusivity is not fake. It's for real, right? I'm
Yep.
teaching people how to do burst style investing, which means they can take the same capital, recycled again and again, which means technically there's going to be a point where I have more than enough clients to literally tackle every single deal I ever see come on the market. I can filter through, see which ones are really going to take action. But once they jump into a project, I will basically kind of like be a partner for them, you know, at the cost of just them doing their financing and some of the consult work with me. But it doesn't really cost them any more than if they did it without me. But they get all my background and experience. But the circle is small, right?
Yep.
And so that, and I won't get too far into that. That's probably talk for a different show. But for the purpose of this sales process, works great for almost anyone who's trying to, like, anybody who's in the service-based business, anyone who's looking to try to grow sales. The consumer has lots of options, and you want to be able to have influence in that sale. And it grabs little bits and pieces from different tactics that I've learned over the years. Okay.
Yeah.
don't want to steamroll the whole talk though. So if you have, I've always taken it more that your approach is much more of a marketer. I think that you're probably more interested in the business I'm building, where by marketing purposes, people are begging to be a customer of it by its reputation. It draws
Mhm.
clients in, and then you just run a machine, and it's like catch them in the mousetrap and then process them through, right?
Yep. Well,
Yep.
our sales process is actually not that hard
Hmm.
because people know what they want for the most part. They set up a time to talk to you. They already know a lot about you. At least they know a lot about me. So through me, they kind of know a lot about the firm. And then it's really a process of just going like, what do you want? Tell me about your specific situation. This is what you should do. Are you interested? You know? Um,
Yep.
the problem, so within that, there are sort of two main, I think, factors to success. One, I'm really good at figuring out, and two, I think is a little innate. Number
Mm.
one is you need to have the expertise to be able to talk to people, hear what they're doing and what they're trying to do, and diagnose the problem correctly, and tell them what they need to do. Right?
Yep.
Not super hard because let's say there's like 30 rules that you need to know. Right? Maybe. Probably similar
Yep.
to you, right? There's like once you learn about all of the different, maybe 10 different options, it's just a matter of honing in and being able to put them in the right bucket and get them going in the right direction, kind of generally, right?
Yep. Yep.
So they say, like, I'm a veteran and I have never owned a home before. You go, okay, well, you're going into this bucket over here, probably, right?
Hmm.
Absent some other kind of thing. And you can kind of like learn a little bit more, but you know where they're going. That's like the
Hmm.
technical side. The part that I have found some people have and some people don't is just what I would describe as like innate confidence, you know, like the ability to inspire trust in people, you know, by
Hmm.
just being able to tell them like this is what you need and say it in a way where they believe you.
Yep.
That's the
Yep.
that's the part I have not yet cracked the code on. For it seems to me that people either have that or they don't. Some of it comes, I think, from experience and just in life. Um, but some people have been able to come in here and just sell stuff and not know anything, you
Yep.
know. Some
Yep.
people know it all, and it's like they're on the struggle bus constantly.
Yep.
So tell me about that.
Yeah. I think skills are a. I do feel like skills are there's a learned skill, and there's there's that whole story about like mastery, right? 10,000 hours of practice. Malcolm Gladwell talks about that in his book Outliers, right? Um, where he spoke about how if you guys haven't read the book Outliers, Malcolm Gladwell, it's a great book. Um,
Yep.
and if at first, even though it's interesting, if you're not paying, it's a really good book for someone like me, because I naturally analyze things for a long time after I've learned the material. So the way that Malcolm Gladwell describes that book is it's that the way he described it was that most books about professional life success are driven around um, these things that you can control. And so he described it as a success book about luck. How some of these people, even though they did control some of those things, they were put into quote unquote lucky situations
Mhm.
that allowed them to be successful. Um, and so, an example of that was he talked about how Canadian hockey players are all born within the same 3-month window.
Right.
And then, as he did research to find out why, it's because hockey in Canada is very much like football/soccer in other places around the world. It doesn't matter how naturally talented you are. If you didn't have the best coaching and training your whole life, you're always going to be a step behind everyone else. And so what happens in the youth leagues, there's an age cutoff for which leagues you're in based off the time of the year. And it's pretty much, the same around, it's the same cycle all around. So,
Yeah.
year after year. So the reason why there's that 3-month window is because those 3 months represent the and I'm paraphrasing for people who read the book. It's been years since I've read it. It may have been 2 months. It may have been within a 2 month. I actually think it was a 2-month window. And that same 60-day window was basically the age group of the oldest children in that specific group. So
Right.
very early in that process, before natural talents shined, and people had different growth spurts in different stages, but in general, on average, those kids would dominate the other kids, even if their skill set wasn't there, just because they were the older kids, so they were more developed
Yeah.
in their motor skills, they were bigger, they were faster. That put them into the better leagues, better coaching, better skill training, and that just perpetually compounded it all the way through their amateur career, so that when they finally went to try to go pro, they just had better coaching, better training, better competition to help them grow. The way that you can spin that is, obviously, I don't know how those rules still apply now in Canada, but you see people practice that now. If you have a kid that's on the cusp for a grade, right? And if you wanted to hold them back for a year, right?
Right.
And people's first reaction to that, I remember I was trying to have this conversation about doing this with Kaysen, because Kaysen was very young for his age group, and he wasn't going to be in academics, but it could technically apply also for academics, right?
Hmm.
Um,
Yeah.
because like you got to learn the material, but also at the same time, if you're trying to get into a really good college, they're not looking back at whether or not you're held back your first grade year. They don't give two shits about that. What they want to see is your high school GPA and your SAT score, right? So it's like, it maybe hold him back for a year. And then if he wasn't care about athletics, anyways, Diane was like, no, she was all like, no, you hold back kids and they're stupid. That's not what we're going to do. I'm like, okay, fine, whatever. And it
Yeah.
worked out fine because he wants to be an entrepreneur anyways. He gives two shit about his grades. But my point is that you can use that example as a way to say, okay, well, why don't I put myself in an environment that
Right.
would create that accidental success? I'm
Yeah.
accidentally always going to be successful for always being around people that are successful by always being
Yeah.
around these things, right?
Yep. No, I see it with so I have, well, Jackson and Dylan are both born in May, right?
Okay, same.
And
Kason,
and and so
younger.
yep. And so like he's in 5th grade right now. Jackson, he went out for the basketball team. He didn't make the team. And it's actually not because he doesn't have the skill, because he's actually pretty skilled. But the problem is he's going against kids that are turning, with it in his grade. He's 8. They've already turned 9, a
Like
lot
in
of them.
September.
That's right. And he doesn't
Yeah,
turn 9 until May. So like he's almost a full, and some of them, by the way, even are June or July or sometimes even May babies that got held back, just like you're talking about. So they're like a full year older than him. So I'm like,
yep,
hey man, you just gotta grow a little bit. Like there's nothing you can't do anything about this right now because it's just um biology, I don't
yep,
know, it just takes time and you have to grow. And to your point though, so like he doesn't make the team even though he has the skills right now, but now he misses out on that practice time, he misses out on that game time, he misses out on that coaching. And it doesn't mean he won't be able to make the team next year necessarily, but it does make it harder and harder sort of progressively, over time as you get more competitive, it does sort of put you behind the wheel, you know.
yep. Now, for the sake of my, to keep the continuation of that story, right? I,
Yeah.
um, I think that putting yourself in a position where you have more practice to do your skill can change things. I've been
Mhm.
technically I started commission selling in 17. And I remember thinking that I made a mistake for quitting athletics. And I look back now, I'm like, dude, that was the best thing I could have done. I'm getting such a head
Right.
start. Now, I
Yep.
mean, for purpose of time, I'll keep it moving forward, but I do think that time does help, and you can't replace that time. That Malcolm Gladwell talks about how to get that 10,000 hours of practice. So,
Were
all
you
right,
good at sales though at 17?
for the measurements that they told, like when I very very first started, no, I was super scared. But I worked at a retail operation. My son's working at Abercrombie, so he's in retail now. But his Abercrombie job reminds me more of like when I worked at IKEA. You help clients, but you're not commission
Right.
based. You might track your
That's
numbers
right.
and stuff like that, but you're not getting paid on it. And where the place I worked was commission based, and there's those measurements, and they were literally the metrics that kind of not only did it change my income, but they're the metrics that corporate and management paid attention to. Units per transaction, right?
Yep.
I still remember the metrics in my head. You got to agree in the first 2.6 seconds, the whole nine. And so it
Yep.
pushed me out of my comfort zone very, very, very fast.
Yeah.
And at one point I thought, oh yeah, I'm great at this. And then later on you realize like, well, that's the easiest format to sell. They're already halfway sold when you walk in the store. So you just got to close the other half. So I was wrong,
Yep.
back then.
Yep.
So, okay, if it was all right, I'm going to just jump straight into it then.
Yeah. Go. Let's
Okay.
go.
So the first thing is there's a couple stages for a sales process. There's you introduce yourself, you build rapport, right? You do a needs analysis, then you close, and then you follow up. So there's 5 steps to a sale. Okay. We're going to focus a lot on the needs analysis and then the close,
Yep.
because the other steps are technically the easiest ones. You know, introduction, build rapport, follow up are the other 3. They're just as important, but the skills of the sale fall in steps 3 and 4. That's where the real game changer happens, because
Yep.
there's a lot of nice people that people like that they don't buy from. But the
Yep.
needs analysis and the close is where the difference maker is. Okay. The other rule about selling is this: the bigger the thing you're trying to sell, the more important it is that you sell it in stages. Because people, doesn't matter how good you do a good job, it's hard to have one meeting with a person and have them make what feels like a relatively large life decision on just one meeting. So the bigger the sale you're trying to do, the more important is that you close for the next stage of the sales process. So what that would look like is if you're a real estate agent and you meet someone at an open house, right? You build a rapport, introduce yourself, right? You know, build some rapport. Um,
Yep.
do a small needs analysis, just out of curiosity, what are you guys looking for in a house, blah, 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 whatever, right? Um, uh, you know, and then when you close, if you said, I, you know, I really want to help you buy a house. Can I be your agent? That's a little fast, right? The comparison I like to give people is, imagine that you're a single guy or gal in a bar and you want to hit on someone, right? You know,
Mhm.
the wink across the room, buy them a drink, close for a dance on the dance floor, then close for the phone number so we can get lunch. Don't be like, hey, go on the dance floor. You seem great. How many kids do you want? Do you want to meet my parents? They're going to be like,
Right.
whoa, freak, back off. So that's just I like to use that analogy because it just reminds people like, look, selling a house isn't as big as the deal as picking your spouse, but it falls closer to that category. There's some really big commitments that go involved with, trying to help someone buy a house, right?
Yeah.
And so you should take a similar approach. Close for the next meeting, right? I know you have lots of options, and by no means would I ever ask you to commit to work with me, but it would mean the world to me if I could apply for the job and buy you guys a cup of coffee to see if I could add value to your home buying, right? That would
Yep.
be closing for the next stage. All I'm asking for is a chance to interview for the job, and I'll buy you coffee, right? By the way, in that close I just gave, gives hints to my steps. So the first thing is understand that a sales process is 5 steps, and that you might have to repeat it multiple times the bigger the sale is. So anyone who's trying to sell something bigger, be prepared. You're going to do this 3 or 4 times to kind of get them in. Okay.
Yep.
All right. So let's dive into that process. So, there's going to be a point where you have to introduce yourself, build a little bit of rapport, have some small talk. I wish I could give you more tips to those things, but I think I've innately do it because of history of doing it. But at the same time, I think most people who are friendly, who are willing to try a sales job, actually have those parts down. It's the needs analysis and the close. So let's talk about the needs analysis. The needs analysis was taught to me from a coach who called it like the 2-step close process. And the 2-step close process is about spending more time diagnosing the problem. Too many people try to jump to selling the solution when they hear people talk about what they're looking for. The most crucial part about the needs analysis is that you slow down and think about how it would feel to be a patient in a doctor's office. If a doctor took your blood pressure, took your weight, right, and then said, "How do you feel?" and then you told them a little bit how you don't feel well. If they immediately said, "Oh, well, I took your weight, took your temperature, and you told me how you feel. I'm pretty sure it's just this," and they just gave you a prescription, you'd be like, "Whoa, did you really diagnose me very closely?" Right? In this case, he did do
Yeah.
some, diagnosing, but not deep enough. The reason why I like to use the doctor thing is this, because I think that for most of us, the best salesperson that we go see is our doctor. and you don't even realize it's a sales process, but it is exactly what it is. It's a diagnosis of your vitals, asking many, many questions, digging deeper into those questions to understand the deeper of what's happening. I know you said you feel this way. It could be this, but why don't we dive into that deeper? And don't put a timetable on it. Just keep going deeper and deeper and try to understand more and more what's really, really happening. It's driving motivation. It's driving these concerns. It's driving these fears, right? Really take the time to dig into it. The more answers they give you, the more ammo they're going to give you on when you want to close. Okay. After you finish all of that, you want to, and for some people who are newer, you want to break it up and maybe set a second meeting. That's the way it was taught. I don't do that. I do it on the same
Yeah.
meeting. But
We're a one meeting close too.
yep. But I do think that if you need practice, then say, great, close for the next meeting, and then practice what you're going to present beforehand because you might need it. And I will say that when I do break it up into 2 meetings, it gives me time to prepare material to go with it.
Yeah.
So if it is a really big sale, breaking up into 2 meetings still makes a ton of sense. I have some great ideas, but I want to show it to you in a more controlled format. I want to do a little bit of research ahead of time. Can we set another meeting to go through what that looks like, right?
Right.
So then you protect, whether you're doing it on the spot or the second meeting, then you go through the list of all the recommendations that you're going to give. Here's what I would recommend you do and why, and always tie it to one of the things that they were saying before. You're literally just, the whole first half was them giving you every objection they would have in the sales process because you took the time to find out all their concerns, all their fears, all their goals, all their dreams, all their aspirations, and all their motivations. You're literally addressing every single thing to make sure that they're met, right?
Yep.
And every time you have that solution, confirm it, reaffirm what you're saying. You said that your budget was this, and the reason why is because you didn't want to be house poor. House poor meant you weren't going to live the life you really wanted to. It was really important. I prepared what I have for you to fit around that. So I prepared a plan for you to buy something like this, and here's how we're going to meet your goals, right? And every single time you affirm it, you say, just pause and say, based off of what you said your concerns were and what I presented, how does that sound? Right? And people say yes or no questions you should avoid, but remember, you're answering objections. So you're not at the closing point yet. So it's perfectly fine to get yeses or nos, because if they give you a no, that's not what I was looking for, go back and reaffirm it and then recreate the new solution, because you're just solving the problem before they say there's a concern. People want to be heard and understood more than they want to be sold. They are people. They don't want to be leads. They don't want to be closed, right? When the doctor does a good job of taking all of your vitals, really listening closely and identifying issues other doctors didn't, and then they give the prescription, do you ever say no? They always say yes. And why? Because they are intelligent, they're qualified, they care, and they listened. And if you have all those things, they will never say no, ever.
Right. Yep.
My goal in every single sales presentation is to close 100%. Now, people make the mistake of thinking, oh, you're going to try to get paid on every sale. That's impossible. No. If your goal is to be that expert, then every single person who's dedicated time to meet you should ideally walk away saying, that guy really knows what he's doing, and I'm glad I have him in my corner, or gal, right? So my goal is to always leave them with something that makes them feel better having talked to me than if they had not talked to me. I'm closing that every single one of them is glad they booked that meeting, even if I'm not pitching a product. Sometimes that recommendation is not to do alone, and then giving them the reasons why. I know it sounds really counterintuitive, but for the marketing purposes, if that's your reputation, that you're the smartest, most intelligent, caring, listening expert who always does what's best for the client, then your reputation is, that's for the people who want that, you're the person to see.
Totally.
Okay.
We have people call us and say, hey, I need a trust. And after talking to them, I say, you don't need a trust. Okay. What you've told me you want to do, you can do this way that is cheaper and easier and, just as effective without just because you've heard the term trust doesn't mean you need one necessarily, depending on what you want to do, what your assets are, who you're trying to give everything to, so it's like, I agree with you 100%.
Yep. Now that the needs analysis and doctor prescription process is probably the part that I am best at when it comes to the sales process. The next thing I'm going to teach is something I don't do 100% of the time, and I know I should do it more to increase our sales. But there's a part of me that has this like authenticity part and probably just courage to do it more often. But if I really want to lay it on thick and get the sale, this is essential. And I will say that at this point, maybe it's because I'm also afraid of breaking my record. I, I'm batting 1,000 that if I do the needs analysis the way I just said and
Yep.
do this close, I've never had a no. Now I've saved it for the biggest sales I've ever done. So it's not like I won't pull it out when I need it the most, because
Yep.
obviously that's when you should use it the most. To me, it's almost like your secret weapon, right? Um, it's like that super special combo in Street Fighter that or something. I don't know. So whatever your special thing that is like no one defeats me when I do this process.
Yep.
So if
Yep.
I do, and I already have a really high closing ratio on just doing a proper needs analysis.
Yeah.
So the first part I learned from a coach, his name was Todd Schuma. The second part I learned it from a coach. Her name was Shayla Gifford, who's now like an executive over at Guild. Right? I heard her give the pitch, and almost everyone when they heard it goes, "Oh my God, that girl is gold." And what she said, it was her close. Right? She gave honor, gave thank. This is you thank them, you give honor for the opportunity, right? And then it was what's brilliant about it is it's a very pushy close that is pushy but doesn't feel like a pushy salesperson. And the way she does it is after giving honor, giving gratitude, she always asks for the business like she's applying for her dream job. So it sounds something like this. I really appreciate the time you give me today. I know you have lots of options, like I said earlier, right? Just having a chance to even apply for the job already means the world to me. And I'm already grateful that you've already given me this time. And you can never take away that gratitude from me. Just the fact that I'm here interviewing for this, I'm already 1,000% grateful. I
Yep.
promise that if you did choose me, I will prove to you every single day that you made the right decision. Can I have the job? Now, the extra piece to it is if you really want to lay it on thick, and this is like the triple like layer part, in that needs analysis of how you're going to solve, if it includes your team, right? So in that same, if I never done like the big sale where it's a two-step close, which I've heard be the way that agents do this for the athletes.
Yeah.
They say, oh, remember how you said these are your problems, these things you want to solve? Here's how we're going to do it. Here's how this person team's going to do it. Here's how this person team's going to do it. And they show it to them. And it's like a multi-layered presentation of what each one of these people is going to do that solves the objection that they said earlier in the first portion of the meeting that mattered to them. And then when you do that same thing, you do it as a group. We love the opportunity to apply for the job with you guys. It would mean the world. And we just are happy to even have a chance to even present to you what we put together for you, because we know you have options. But I promise you, if you chose us, that we would prove to you every single day you made the right choice. Can we have the job? Because it's the pressure of, and even if the other people around the team are not salespeople, they're just there doing their little presentation. That close, I've never said a no to, because somewhere hidden in that super pushy ask is the fact that I'm implying to them that they're in charge. They always have the decision to renege it, right? That they're in control, right?
Yep.
And it's wrapped in gratitude. And that after they make that decision, you have to continually earn it afterwards. So you're not asking for the sale, you're asking for the chance to work for them. And that subconscious, and she never said that when she was doing her presentation. I just heard her say it. And over the years of analyzing it, I realized why it was so effective. And it has a little twist on people's mind, and it works beautifully.
Yeah.
So needs analysis, close like you're applying for your dream job. Needs analysis like your doctor, close like you're applying for your dream job.
Yeah. I never closed like that on mine, but it's only because I think it is very effective. But there's not a lot of urgency with what we do, like, so sometimes that can really push people away. I like people to feel like it's natural. So normally what I just do is, like, after I'm done, I just say, what are the next steps for you?
Mm-hmm.
Because sometimes they want to think about it, because with what we're doing, they get a lot of new information often. And sometimes they do need a little bit of time to process it, So like but what happens most of the time is they say, that sounds great. Like, let's go,
Yeah.
And I'm like, okay, let's go.
Yeah. Most of the time, I take more of that approach. I do the needs analysis, and my close will almost. It's actually called like I can't remember what they call it. It's like it's like a presumption close. Like if I did all these, if I spent that much time addressing all of your needs and really clearing all the objections, I'm already assuming the answer is yes, right? And
Right.
I'm even asking the question, was there anything that I missed? Is there
Totally.
anything that I didn't cover that mattered to you? Right?
Right.
Those constant questions, like at each one of those analysis that you cover, and then reaffirming that you address their concerns and that you are listening to what their needs are, and then really taking your time to address every single one of them, and then you just have a version of a close. Well, that sounds great. Then let's go ahead and proceed. Right?
Yeah.
That's usually what that close looks like. That big close where I ask for the dream job is usually happens when I'm shopping for like an account. Right.
Yeah. And we don't really have big,
that would be like you
opportunities
doing
like
like
that.
some like Fortune 500 company presentation or HR, so they can push all their estate planning for all their clients to you of like a 40,000 employee business, right?
Yes.
Like that would be the present, like that close would be more relevant for that person making
Totally.
that decision for that corporation that would drive all that business to your firm, right?
100%.
And that's more, and that's usually where it's worked for me. It's usually happened when I'm working with a developer that I was looking to try to get their referrals, or an agent that has a lot of business also.
Yeah. Yep. Love it. We have to go.
Yeah.
We already used all our time. We started late.
Yep. Needs analysis. Needs analysis like you're a doctor. Close like you're applying for your dream job. If you can make that a standard practice, you'll crush it in your sales.
Yeah, and one other thing that you mentioned, I think also is super important, is reps. Like we practice a lot. We have a lot of opportunities. We do a lot of sort of like analysis after the fact. Like we practice and treat it like it's a skill that you can build, and you just have to hope you can build it fast enough to meet your metrics.
Yeah, I think that presentation for me will be in the future, talking to the landowners directly.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, cool. All right. That's it for today. Shorty but a goodie. If you like this, hit the like button. If you know someone that should hear this, share it with them. If you have questions or want us to talk about something, let us know. Otherwise, thanks for making it this far. I am Chris.
I'm Keane.
This is the Business Barbershop Podcast.
See you guys later.